Good morning, students. We are into doing the poetry Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda, in his poem, is asking the readers, the people, that he would count till 12. And when he has counted till 12, he wants all sorts of activities to be put to halt, to be ceased for a period of time. And that period of time when there is no machines, no arm, no rat race, that time no language is spoken, everyone is calm and still. At that moment he wants the people to do introspection, to analyze themselves, self analysis to be done. And in that period of calmness and quietude they have to understand the acts that has been done by them for themselves or for others. About those acts they have to ponder upon, and he wishes that in this period of silence the people should be able to communicate with each other and establish a mutual understanding amongst themselves. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Fisherman is a symbol of man's indiscriminate exploitation of nature. Whales, whales are symbols of extinct species. So the poet Pablo Neruda says what? He says that these fishermen in this period after the poet has counted till 12 and a period of quiet introspection and self-analysis is going on. At that time the fishermen would get time, fishermen and the people who are exploiting the nature would get time to ponder upon their deeds, that how their acts have destroyed the nature, destroyed the flora and fauna, and hurt the animals around. And fishermen would realize their mistakes, that how they have been harming the whales in the cold seas, the polar regions. So the poet over here raises a global issue. He talks about the conservation of the aquatic species like whales and other extinct species in the polar regions. And then the poet says, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. So he says that the people in their efforts to get comforts, in their efforts to gain monetary benefits, they would see that how they have not paid heed to their own pain and the pain that they have caused to themselves. So when they would get this time of stillness, of quietude, they would reflect upon themselves, reflect upon the duties or the tasks they have been doing, and the sufferings that they have caused to not only themselves but others also. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. The poetic device used in this stanza are symbolism. Symbolism, cold sea. Cold sea is a symbol of polar regions, and fishermen in the cold sea both are symbols of oppressor and oppressed. Then the poetic device used is his hurt hands, that is, alliteration has been used over here, her sound has been repeated. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So now the poet Pablo Neruda says what? That those who prepare green wars, those here stands for whom? Those here refers to politicians, to statesmen, to scientists, to warmongers. These people who have prepared green wars, that is, they have waged wars against environment, against nature, by cutting trees, hunting, poaching, killing aquatic species. These people, wars with gas, that is the poisonous gases, those who have waged wars with poisonous gases, that is chemicals and nuclear weapons. Wars with fire, that is firearms. Victory with no survivors. Now these warmongers, when the poet is going to count till 12, in that period of introspection, self analysis, these warmongers would wonder and think on what? Victory with no survivors. That is, their aim till now had been what? Their aim had been getting victory, even if the entire humanity is wiped out. They wanted victory. And these people had waged wars, and their victory was a victory of man's scientific knowledge. So they would reflect that what worthless this victory would be if there were no survivors to celebrate the victory, as human beings themselves would become an extinct species. So they would wonder in this period of quietude. They are going to wonder on their own acts and the deeds that they have been doing. Now, these warmongers would do what? In this period of introspection, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So, these warmongers, these people would do what? They would put on clean clothes. Clean clothes signifies what? Clean clothes, one, signify that there would not be any stains of blood of the own race, and the other it signifies is the changing old ways and living in a clean, peaceful way. That is changing old ways, that is they have been always waged wars against their own human race. Now the new peaceful way they are going to adopt would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers. Now they would become brothers. Brothers, they would strengthen the message of peace and brotherhood. Now in peace there is friendship, but in war there is enemies. So they would realize the significance of their own brotherhood in that period of quietude. And they would walk about with their brothers in the shade. The shade of what? The shade of protection. Now they are not threatened by each other in the name of country, in the name of language, in the name of religion. So they would be one. They would realize the strength of humanity. So they would be like brothers doing nothing, and there would not be any reason. They would find newness in their life as all their destructive activities would be put to halt. So this period of quiet introspection, they would realize that how a universal brotherhood, how to abandon all kinds of destructive activities and establish universal brotherhood in the world. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. The poetic devices used in this stanza is symbolism. Green wars symbolizes war rage against environment. Wars with gases symbolizes poisonous wars. Wars with fire symbolizes wars with firearms. Then the poetic device used is metaphor. Put on clean clothes is an example of metaphor. That means men would shed his blood-soiled clothes and wear on clean clothes. That is, he would cleanse his soul, heart and mind, purging it of all anger and hatred. Then the example of metaphor is in the shade. Just as the shade protects us from the harsh sun, we will protect and shelter each other as brothers, thus live in peace and harmony. Then the poetic device used is again symbolism. Brothers is a symbol of mankind. And then the poetic device used is wars with gas, wars with fire. The words wars with has been repeated. The poetic device used is a refrain. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. Now the poet says that I want things to be very clear. I do not want to confuse confuse the readers, confuse the people. He says, do not misunderstand me. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. So do not misunderstand me. I'm not propagating over here that total inactivity. I'm not propagating over here passivity. So he says that inactivity would be what? Inactivity would be no less than death. Inactivity would be permanent suspension of work. It is just like death. So he says life is what it is about. So life is an ongoing process. Life goes on as usual. Life is nothing but an activity. Without activity, there would not be any life. I want no truck with death. So he says that he does not want man to be passive and begin thinking of death. So the poet refuses to associate with death or deal with death. He believes that when I say stillness, when he says that there after 12, I want stillness, I want calm, then he says that that stillness should not be confused with total inactivity. That period of silence, he wants that temporary pause and a break. He wants that the people, that the humans, they should rest for a while. They should take a rest from the hurry and rush of life, and they should ponder upon things. In that moment of silence, the people would learn the need and importance of peaceful and harmonious living. They would learn that how to start anew again, how to live life with a positive attitude. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. The poetic device used here is euphemism, that is an indirect word or expression that you use instead of a more direct one when you are talking about something that is unpleasant and embarrassing. So the poetic device used here is in the line, I want no truck with death. If we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Now, the poet Pablo Neruda says what? That we were not so single minded. We human beings are single minded. We human beings are engrossed in materialistic aims and responsibilities. We want to achieve our goals, personal responsibilities, and these goals can be scientific progress. It can be a reckless progress. So because of this single-minded attitude, we want our lives to be moving. That is, we are busy with our pursuits. We are self-centered people and self-absorbed people. So he says that we want to keep our lives going on and on without rest, without respite. And he says that for once could do nothing. Then he urges the readers, he urges the people that for once, if we can stop for a while, we can stop our activities for a while, then what would happen? Perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness. So it says that this period of silence, this period of stillness will interrupt the sadness. Now, sadness of what? The man is grief stricken. There is sadness on his soul. What sort of sadness? Of never understanding ourselves. So the poet says what? That we have never tried to understand ourselves. We have never tried to understand what we want or who we are. We have been gifted a beautiful life by God, but we never realize the importance of this gift. So we have never tried to understand and explore our own real self, and we have sacrificed our own emotional needs because of this mad competition, and that has resulted in sadness and isolation. So it says that this silence, this period of silence, we might be able to get some time to explore our real selves and of threatening ourselves with death. So the poet says that we are threatened by death. So death continues to threaten us in many ways. How? Because of the increasing arm race, because of the increasing rapid advancement towards progress at the cost of the nature. We ourselves are standing on the verge of extinction. So it says that we continue to threaten our lives with death because of this advancement. So poet says that this period of silence, what would do, it would end our miseries of never trying to understand ourselves. And this period of silence, this moment of silence would for even for this even for a moment, the silence and stillness would do us good by removing our sadness, and it would give us a period of self-analysis and introspection so that we can explore our own real self. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Now poet Pablo Neruda asks us to take a lesson from the earth, that we are going to the earth will teach us a lesson. And what lesson the earth will teach? It will teach us a lesson of art of living. The earth will teach us a lesson of preserving and resurrecting life. When everything seems dead, now during winter season, what happens? Every bit of thing is covered with ice and there is no trace of life. But what seems to be dead in winter actually blossoms in life with the onset of spring. Similarly, you might have seen seeds that seem dead germinates under the earth and a new life springs from it. And then the poet says, now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. So the poet quietly leaves. His work as a poet is done. He has given a message of quiet introspection and self-analysis. Now it is up to the human beings how to lead a meaningful existence, not only as an individual but for the society as well. So the poet asks men to be quiet and experience the aesthetic moments of silence, and then to revive his thoughts and transform his mindset for the good of humanity, for the good of nature. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. The poetic device used here is personification. In the first line, the earth has been personified, giving it a human quality of teaching. And the poetic device used is antithesis in the line, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Antithesis means two opposite ideas are put together to achieve contrasting effects. So the opposite ideas of dead and alive have been placed in this line, and this is an example of antithesis. I hope you like the explanation of the poetry. For any doubts or queries, you can text or call on my personal mobile number. Thank you.